Welcome to today's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Peter Haug, Aspire Product Manager for LTi Solutions. Thanks, Peter, for joining me.
Hey, Jesse, glad to be here.
No, absolutely, man. And, I had the pleasure of working with you for almost 10 years at LTi, but for those of you in the industry who don't know you, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I started at LTi, what was then lease team in 2009 at an interesting point in the financial and economic world when everyone was kind of trying to stay afloat. So back at that time, I was focused primarily on application support and kind of getting into eventual, 6-year stint in implementation. So doing all that training, configuration, consulting type approach for, like I said, for about 6 years. And then finally in 2016, I got to basically where I am today, at least in terms of title. Hopefully I've got a little more experience and a little more understanding and knowledge about the product management role, but that's when I got into it in 2016. I guess going back even further, you could say that I've been in the industry almost my entire life. With my dad, Randy, starting the company in 1989, a couple of years after I was born. So I guess maybe through osmosis or whatever, I might have been picking things up over the years.
So you knew the sales pitch almost when you were, still in your mom's womb, theoretically.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, you can't stop Randy, so absolutely.
No, you cannot. So I guess going from a professional services person to, a product owner, do you miss being on the road at all? Or I know myself personally, it's like I've been traveling for, 2020 aside, and hopefully half of this year. It's like you get used to being on the road, you get used to kind of the statuses and everything else. So
right.
What's that kind of like?
Yeah, so it is at an interesting point in time. If you asked me this a year ago, I would have said, no, not really. When I was doing that work, I was in a different point in my life. I wasn't married, I didn't have a kid. And, once those things happened, priorities shifted a little bit, and I appreciated staying at home a little more.
Right.
But, now a year of no travel has put me in a place of like, I'd like to get back out there at some point. Not because I don't want to spend time with my family, but it's good to just break free of the familiar environment. I find that helps, kind of the creativity flow and things like that, is to get out there and to talk with people face to face and really see different places, experience different things. I love, personally, I just really love traveling. Even though the warts and all in terms of delayed flights and whatever else. I mean, I just love experiencing different places. Obviously business travel can be a little bit different. Being in a conference room in a building, you might as well be anywhere, but just the journey of getting there I really like that aspect. So I'm looking forward to getting back to it at least in a limited extent here in the not too distant future.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. And, my family, if anything, probably gets tired of me for being here all the time. So they're like, when can you travel again?
No comment.
Yeah, fair enough, man. But so if you don't mind, and tell us a little bit more about, being a product owner for,
Sure.
Aspire version 5. Like, what's that like on a continual basis, and, keeping up with trends and stuff in technology to make sure that you're on that ever-changing forefront?
Yeah, I mean, one of the tough parts I'll say is it's a huge piece of software. There's a lot of different areas of functionality. It's covering the whole gamut from, the sales origination process all the way through to credit documentation. I mean, I don't have to tell you, all the way through to asset disposition and servicing, all that great stuff. So there's a great breadth of knowledge that you need to have. There's a great level of understanding of various different aspects of the business, which for me, I love that because I'm a big picture type person. So I really like to understand the whole thing and how things are interconnected. But at times, it is difficult to spend the time necessary to cover each and every piece. So what I like to do is, I'm involved in the ELFA with the Operations Technology Committee. Obviously, we didn't get to have our conference last year, but we still got to meet quite quite a bit, and I got the chance to do a presentation at the ELFA Business Live conference last year. And through that, like just talking with people around the industry, you get the feel for like where people's heads are at. You know, certainly when you see things like you watch basic economic trends, or you see these big things like, wow, this big flashing light, this COVID pandemic, where you have people dealing with a huge number of deferral requests, or, you know, even looking at the economy, you know, we've been on a 10+ year high now of economic growth. And I kind of look at that and I'm saying, okay, well, at some point, the economy is cyclical. What things do we need to do to prepare for a potential downtrend in the economy? And obviously we saw a very accelerated version of that at the beginning of last year. So I like to just look at, you know, not necessarily things that are in the industry itself, but things that are could be impactful to the industry, and say, okay, well, what can we do? These are things that are about to, you know, hit our customers, hit our industry like a freight train. What can we do about that? You know, we can't always hit the mark, and, you know, sometimes you're a little bit behind the curve, but ultimately, you know, things that I'm focused on are trying to stay in touch with those people that are, you know, in leadership positions at our customers, because they're the ones that are in charge of guiding the ship of their company and putting them in putting their strategic plans in place. And ideally, the most ideal situation for me is my roadmap matches up closely with the roadmap of my customer. Their strategic goals are my strategic goals. Obviously, it can't always be the case, but you know, that's what I hope to be the case. And just like anywhere else, you know, we deal with the constraints of limited resources and limited time to do an unlimited number of amazing things or ideas that we want to do, right? And everyone deals with that, whether it's in business or their personal life. So that's one of the fun puzzles or challenges that can be frustrating sometimes, but you know, we try to keep a positive spin on it, and you know, do what we can to try to make things great for our customers and our users.
No, and absolutely, and that's where it's one of those things where I appreciated working with you over the years, especially when you got in that role, because of me, I just can't help myself, you know, where I got to push buttons and be like,
you got lots of ideas, Jesse. I'll give you that.
And how do you keep those ideas in check? And you did a good job at that, man. So well done. So about the not to get too technical here, but the whole like SOFR stuff and things like that that are presenting it, you know, it's like, and then you also, besides the challenges like technology, then you get some of that other stuff that kind of presents itself, and it's like, okay, what are we doing today?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so to speak about those types of themes generally, I'll just say, like, I try to take the approach of a novice when it comes to introducing myself into those topics. I mean, ultimately, do I know the impacts? Did I start off knowing the impacts of a LIBOR transition to SOFR? No. Was I super interested in learning the intricacies of derivatives and hedging rates and all that? Somewhat, but ultimately, the benefit that I have is with a broad, strong user base like LTi has, there are so many resources out there. You know, I was able to work with one of our big bank customers and their commercial lending team, with people from their derivatives trading desk, and of course with their equipment finance people, to figure out, okay, what is the true impact? What are the things that we really need to focus on? Because as with anything, you're dealing with regulations. There's so much gray area, and there's so much kind of wait and see. Let's just talk about refer back to the accounting changes that are supposed to have happened. I remember maybe in my first or second year, so this is like 2010, 2011 period, I did some research. I was asked to do some research and give a presentation internally on these proposed accounting changes. And here we are 10 years later, and not everyone is even required to take them on. We don't really know for certain. It's kind of a wait and see, like, what are the big four accounting firms going to say in terms of auditing? That's the big thing. And ultimately, what are the big players within the equipment finance industry going to do? And even you talk to some of them and they're like, well, I don't know. Like, here's what we prefer to do. We're still working with FASB on the changes. And so it's an interesting, as a software provider, we're trying to make the lives of these people easier and try to support their compliance with these various different regulations. And so it's an interesting balancing act to try not to overreact and like go ahead and build like the most robust thing, and it turns out you really don't need it, versus like just waiting to the last minute and saying, oh, you're going to just have to do that manually. Ultimately, what we try to look at is impact, and we try to look at what the possible alternatives are. We try to look into the crystal ball and say, okay, well, let's say we didn't do anything. What would that do for you? You're going to have to add an employee to take care of this. Is that going to work for your auditors? And we take an advisement what our customers say, and if they say we need something, then we figure something out. But ultimately, like I said, it just kind of goes back to involving those people who that's their day-to-day job to be experts in that. I will never be an expert in every single aspect of the equipment finance industry. I hope to have a good breadth of knowledge and be able to answer some of those things off the cuff and talk intelligently about them. But ultimately, I like to refer to the experts.
Well, and you got that going for you. If you ask me to talk intelligently about derivatives, I don't have a chance. Sorry.
Oh, I can't do that either. I'm not going to fool myself there.
I can't even BS you on that stuff, man. So don't worry about that. So I know we talked a little bit about this, but so your son Gus is what, 18 months old now?
Yeah, just 17 months now. Yeah.
I think our birthdays are only a few days apart, so that's kind of where I get that point of reference from. But I guess it's all kind of relative now with not traveling, but what's that like now? You introduce a young child, what's that like from a work-life perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for one, it continues to get me to exercise my ability to learn on the fly. Obviously I don't want to say there's no training manual, because there's been plenty of books that have sold millions of copies to tell you how to raise your child. But of course, it's never a one size fits all, and every kid is different. I imagine. I just have this one, so I don't really know. But yeah, it's been a crazy adventure and a lot of fun. I think ultimately my wife and I were lucky. He's always been a good sleeper, so we've had the benefit of usually being on a full night's rest, which helps me to be able to react to things a little bit better. But you get the odd thing, like a couple of days off of daycare this past week because of a snowstorm here in Omaha. And sometimes it can test the patience a little bit, because as someone who prides myself on knowing a lot, being able to react quickly to things, you have to be patient with someone who's just learning everything from scratch. Thankfully, though, kids learn so fast, and sometimes in a really good way, or sometimes in a way that they learn how to push your buttons and things like that. So we get to experience all that fun stuff too. But yeah, I mean, just going back to the whole travel thing, I'm thankful to not have to travel right now, because it's great to be able to experience this part of his growth and development and his personality and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I remember when we first brought Jeremy home from the hospital, it's like, okay, is there a manual for this thing? Like, is he breathing? You're checking him every night. And then now Rory, it's like, it's fine. You've been through it once before. It's like, there's no need to panic.
It's old hat. You just, very relaxed.
So maybe in a couple of years, you'll kind of experience that too, where you're just kind of like, oh yeah, we've been there, we've done that.
You've been talking with my mom or something about this?
Oh, no.
Strategizing when the next grandchild's coming.
Strategizing. Yep. But I guess speaking of parents, so obviously Randy is a staple in the equipment finance industry. What's that like, Peter? And working with your dad, or seeing your dad, I guess, in work mode. I don't think your dad's ever not in work mode, but so talk about that relationship, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely has a different work-life balance. Obviously, my brother and I are out of the house for some time now, so he doesn't have any rugrats to chase around. But I mean, he's definitely someone who's had a lot of influence on me and a lot of influence on the industry. He's involved at seemingly every event and every facet of the industry, and he knows everyone. I mean, I think his starting point to introduce me to a new customer, a new prospect, is to tell me the 15-year-old, 20-year-old story about how he met this person originally and all the different finance companies they've worked at and all the other people that they know that I've already met and all that sort of thing. And it's, for one, it's amazing that he can remember all that stuff. And two, it just shows how involved he is and how passionate he is about the industry. On the other hand, he's like you, he's a salesperson. So, between
he's
product,
awesome then.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And he always fits in the box of what you guys do. So
you said it
perfect.
It's like you read the script that I was reading. No, I mean, certainly sales is a great source of information about what we need to do to be successful, but ultimately it can lead to some strife on individual deals that you just have so close to the finish line. Just need to get that signature, along with a commitment to do some big piece of development or a big change in the product, whatever it might be. Just that
it's just code, man. It's just code.
Exactly.
You got this.
Just that little formality. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's an interesting aspect of the parent-child relationship, as well as like just business trying to be cooperative from a business perspective.
Well, it's one of those things as you're dealing with me, it's like, be quiet, Jesse, go back to, your thing. And then it's like, if your dad says that, it's like, but at least I know about your personality. You're basically going to say the same thing, maybe just a little bit more tactful. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Depends on the situation. Yeah. No, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to give him a little ribbing every once in a while. But yeah, of course. I mean, I try to keep things civil.
Yeah. Well, civility is good. You need those babysitters, man. Trust me, you need them.
Yeah, so. I know. I wish. It's been kind of tough with COVID right now, but yeah, I gotta keep them in good graces until that time for sure.
Well, Peter, thank you again for joining me today. I'm looking forward to, I don't know, you got the LTi user group at the end of May. Maybe
we'll
not.
See. I don't know. I don't think vaccines are going out quite fast enough yet, but we'll have to see what happens. We're planning and making contingency plans in case we can't do that, but we always love to see all of our clients and partners at the users conference in Omaha. So I'm hoping that we get to have it, but we'll see. We'll have it to look forward to even more in 2022.
Exactly. Well, thanks again, man, for joining me. I really appreciate your time, Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Good to talk with you.
All right. Take care.